Hello and welcome for another Yin Yoga practice today. Today's practice again will give you lots of time to set up for each pose. As in Yin, we hold them for about 3 to 5 minutes at a time. And you may want a block or a nice pillow or a bolster to have with you to help you out in some of the poses today. Our theme today is focusing on the kidney and the bladder meridians. And we'll talk about those more as we go along throughout the practice. The kidney meridian that does run from the inside the arch of the foot, comes up around the ankle, up along through the inside of the leg, runs up through the body, through the kidney and the bladder, up into the chest, and then ends at about the clavicle. Our bladder meridian actually starts at the inside of the eye, and it runs up across the forehead and then down the back of the head and down the neck. And from there, it takes a couple of branches. One of the branches runs down to your sacrum or your tailbone, and then it comes to the back of the knee, and the other branch runs across the buttocks, down the back of the leg to the outside of the pinky toe. So that gives you a little clue about what our poses will be like today. They'll be focusing a lot on the legs, the inside of legs opening up along the hip flexors, and we'll just get right to it. The first pose will be butterfly pose. And go ahead and take a seat and bring the soles of the feet together. And from here, as always, we're going to find our edge where there's no pinching, no sharpness. It's where our body can come and we can relax and hold this pose without tension and to stay here in stillness for several minutes. So I like to bring my hands just underneath the feet and then fold forward from your hips. And you can just let your head drop down. And we'll start to relax into this pose. The knees definitely do not need to touch the mat. But if you feel like they need support, you can take one block underneath each side of the knees. In Chinese medicine, it's important to understand the organ and emotional pairings and how they influence our emotional and physical construct. As we sit here and relax deeply into this butterfly pose, we're opening up along the inner thigh, deeply into the hip flexors, and working on opening that kidney energy pathway. The kidney is believed to hold our essence. It controls the regulation of fluids in the body. The kidney is responsible for birth, development, and reproduction in Chinese medicine. As we continue to hold here, you may even feel yourself drop deeper and deeper. Maybe you even have your head in your toes already. Remember, we're not pulling in these poses or forcing them. And continue to take deep and even deeper breaths as we relax further into each pose. To come out of this pose, take your hands out from underneath your feet if they were under your feet, and then use your hands to push yourself up. And go ahead and bring the knees together using your hands to support. You may want to lean back a little bit. Move the knees back and forth. And give the hips a little wake up here. And we're going to counter with just a quick reverse tabletop. Go ahead and spin yourself around on the mat. And feet stay flat on the mat. And your hands will come just slightly behind your bottom with the fingers facing the forward, the very front of the mat. And now push through your feet and exhale the hips up. And we'll hold here. Your neck can stay looking forward as I am. You can also look up at the ceiling, or if you feel comfortable and your neck is strong, you can drop your neck back. But to protect your neck, do what you need to do. Just a couple of breaths here. Sliding the shoulder blades together to lift the sternum up towards the ceiling. One more inhale. And exhale, go ahead and release back down to the mat. Okay, from here, we're going to come into our yogi squat. This is where you may want a block or even a wall. I'm going to go ahead and grab my block just to show you. Feet can come hip width distance apart, and knees in line with the toes and the ankles. If this is a difficult pose for you to access, and since we will be holding it for a few minutes, you may want to just sit on a block. And that way we aren't tense throughout the time that we are spending here. This yogi squat will be slightly different. Instead of having our chest up into the sky as you would normally see during yoga, We're going to go ahead and let the arms come forward and then take the hands behind the neck, clasping, and just rest behind the neck. No need to pull here. Hands are just adding enough pressure so you can feel that nice stretch along the back side of the neck and the back of the body. Here we're activating our bladder meridian. Water is the element of the bladder meridian. The bladder is said to be our regulatory source for our energy reserves. Opening up along this pathway can help us build up those reserves. You can think of our energy as how it relates to water. Our energy can be like a heavy flowing stream. Maybe it's just a trickle. Maybe it comes in waves like the ocean. As you continue to breathe deeply here, follow your breath on the inhale and feel it traveling down the back line of the body, all the way down to the sacrum. Feel that energy travel down the body as you open up and release. From here, you can go ahead and unclasp the hands and place them down onto the mat. And you can use your hands to push yourself up, or just drive your feet into the mat to lift the hips up to the sky. And from here, we're just going to dangle in our Uttanasana, or dangling pose. Feel free to keep a bend in the knees, especially if you're just starting this out at the beginning of the day. Your hamstrings may not be very awake yet. And let the head hang loose. Your hands can either rest on the mat, or you can go ahead and grab the elbows. And we'll just hang here, taking a few breaths, allowing the spine to decompress. Feet are firmly planted in the mat, maybe leaning just slightly forward so we have more weight into the balls of our feet. Finding that edge, holding, coming to stillness. Renewing our energy reserves for today. On the next inhale, release the hands. You can go ahead and come into a halfway lift. Pause here, and then we'll slowly lower back down into a tabletop position and prepare ourselves for our melting heart pose, or Anahatasana. So hips are directly over the knees, and your knees are about hip width distance apart. And from here, we're going to go ahead and start to walk the hands out, keeping the arms straight, and then start to lower the chest down. Your option here is to either bring your forehead to the mat, and you can stay right there. If you want to go a little deeper, you can rest your chin on the mat. If both of those options are a little too much, you can go ahead and fold the arms in and then rest the forehead right on the hands. Find your version of the pose that works best for you today. And working on our shoulder mobility, opening up along the inside of the shoulders. As we continue to hold here in our melting heart pose, we can feel our chest melting further and closer to the mat. And make sure you're still engaging the core and not just letting the tummy hang down, but keeping that engaged. And we'll start to come out. To come out of this pose, press firmly into the forearms. And come forward. And we'll push ourselves up into a tabletop. And then go ahead and swing the legs around. And bring them all the way in front of you. Just straighten up here. Okay. Our next pose will be a dragonfly pose. Right leg continues to stay out long, and you'll bring your left sole of the foot to the inside of the right inner thigh. And from here, we'll fold from the hips and start to walk our hands forward, folding down. This might be where you want a pillow or a bolster to support yourself, or maybe have something to rest your head on. Because sometimes it's nice to have something there to support our head and our neck as we hold these poses, instead of leaning forward and letting them just drape down. So sometimes I'll start here with the block. And if I feel my body release deeper into the pose, I will go ahead and change the position or the height of the block as I deepen further into the pose once we're holding these for a few more minutes along the way. Remember, with each breath, we're relaxing deeper into the pose. If you feel any sharpness or discomfort, start to ease slightly, backing out of the pose. And then you can slowly drop back in when you're ready. In Chinese medicine, the kidney meridian is our essence. As this energy pathway becomes blocked, you may show signs of fatigue, stress, aging. We're using our time here today to renew that pathway, to rebuild our essence. To come out of this pose, bring your hands in, push into your hands, and slowly rise up. And go ahead and extend that left leg out. And just give the legs a little tap, a little love against the mat. And feel that energy flow back into the hips and into the thighs. All right. And now we'll move to the other side, and the left leg stays out long, and you go ahead and bring the right foot, the sole of the foot, to the inside of the left thigh. And again, we'll drape over, bending from the hips, and then rounding over. And we'll start to relax into this side, using your block or a pillow if you'd like. You probably have one side that's much tighter than the other. That is perfectly normal. Notice the differences that you feel from one side of the body to the other, and the changes that you'll feel at the end of the practice. Keep your breath rhythmic and natural. Make sure you're not holding in these poses. Relaxing the jaw. Relaxing the skin around the face, between the eyes, around the nose, and around the mouth. From here, go ahead and start to walk your hands in. Press your palms into the mat to lift yourself up. And we'll go ahead and extend those legs out again. Give them a little shake, a little love. And then maybe bring the soles of the feet flat onto the mat, and we'll do a couple of windshield wipers, dropping both of the knees over to the left and then over to the right. We'll just do that a couple of times. Get the blood and get the fluids moving again after holding still for so long. And one more time. Okay, from here we're going to go into our square pose, which can be a very difficult pose. And I'll show you how to get set up. First, keep your right leg out long. Go ahead and bring your left leg in and take that left ankle and bring it underneath the right knee. So now your left shin is parallel to the front or the top edge of your mat. And from here, you could take your right leg and bring your right foot in front of the left knee. So your right shin is basically stacked in front of the left leg. And this is where most people will be at. And maybe even this is difficult for you. Remember that your knees can be lifted. They do not need to be flat against the mat. That's generally not accessible for most. You can take blankets or blocks underneath your knees to allow them to rest right there. If you would like to take the pose deeper, you can take your right foot and have the right ankle stacked on top of the left knee, and then the right knee is on top of the left ankle. From here, we are going to lower forward and down into the pose. So bending from the hips, go ahead and start to walk the hands out and maybe bring the forearms to the mat. And we're just going to rest here like this, opening up the hips for a few minutes, breathing deeply. Remember to take those nuances, the version of the pose that suits you best. We don't want to feel any impingement on the joints, especially into the knees, or any sharp pain. Make sure you back off right away if you do feel any of that, and adjust the pose as you need to. You can go ahead and close the eyes here if you'd like. Keeping the breath steady and feeling as you open up into those hips. It's a very deep hip opener in this pose. You're going to feel it throughout the thighs, the buttocks, and the hips. In this pose, we're stimulating the bladder meridian the bladder line of energy. Opening up this pathway leads a path to opening up a clear mind, making our decisions easier. Easier to let our thoughts come and to just let them go. Renewing our ability to allow ourselves to let go. Again, to come into this or to come out of this pose, push into your hands and bring yourselves up to sit. Before we unravel, we're going to do just a slight twist towards our right side. Go ahead and bring the left hand to the right knee and just do a gentle twist as you look over your right shoulder. And then come back to forward. From here, go ahead and separate the legs. And we're going to windshield wiper. A quick release here, just twice on each side, to the left, and once more to the right. And again, we'll extend our legs out long. This time the left leg stays out straight, and you go ahead and bring the right foot underneath the left knee so that your right shin is parallel to the front of the mat. And now go ahead and take the left foot. It can come in front of the right knee, and shins in front of the left shin in front of the right shin. Or if you feel like you're able to, you can stack that left foot on top of the right knee and come into your square pose. And hands come out in front of you, and we start to lower down, bending from the hips and folding forward. It can be very challenging to hold these intense postures for several minutes. And you may find your mind start to wander more. And that's when we need to come back to our breath, focusing on those inhales and those deep exhales. Taking just one breath at a time as we utilize these poses to rebuild those energy reserves today. Renewing our internal source of energy. Often in these more intense postures, I find it's a good time to remind myself to smile, because I know I won't be here long. And I know the great benefits that I'll receive from taking the time to have my practice. Very nice. Go ahead and push again into the mat and walk your hands back until you come to sit upright. And from here, we're going to take our little twist again. Bring the left hand back behind you. The right hand comes to the left knee. Exhale with a small twist as you look towards the back. And inhale, release. Go ahead and unwind those legs. Feet come to the mat, and we'll do a couple more of those windshield wipers. Just a couple on each side. Let's do one more to the left and then one more to the right before we come into one of our last poses of the sequence today. This is our reclined twist pose. Let's go ahead and center yourself back onto the mat. Extend the legs or lower down, and then extend the legs out long. And from here, go ahead and take the arms into a T shape. You can also do a cactus shape. Maybe you don't have enough room to spread your arms all the way out to a T. And then go ahead and walk the feet in till your soles of the feet are flat on the mat. And from this point, go ahead and shift your hips about 1 to 2 inches over to the right. This is going to keep our spine straight as we drop the knees over to the left and twist along that spine. From here, you can leave your left hand out to a T, or you can also let it just rest gently on the outside of the right, just above the knee. Head can come over to the right, gazing at the right hand. And we hold here for a couple of minutes, just relaxing. Noticing how good this twist feels along the spine. To come out, we'll put our feet back, the soles of the feet back along the mat. Center out our hips. We'll do the same thing, but on the opposite side. Now go ahead and take the arms out to a T again. Shift the hips slightly over to the left a couple of inches, and then allow the knees to drop over to the right-hand side. Head can look over at your left hand and the right hand can rest on top of the left leg. From here, we'll start to unwind. Release the legs. Straighten out the hips. And you can stretch the legs out long as we come to our final pose, Shavasana. Feet fall out to the sides. Arms come along your sides, taking up space. Palms open up to the sky. So we take these last couple of minutes to assimilate the work we have done within our body, honoring those connections between the body, between the physical and the mental. Resting here for a few more moments, or several if you would like to continue on in your Shavasana. Taking note of how our energy reserves are now versus from when we started. I encourage you to continue on in your Shavasana for as long as you like. If you are ready to come out at this time, start to wiggle the toes, wiggle the fingers, maybe making a firm fist with the hands to wake up, and then stretching the arms overhead, taking a deep stretch in. Draw your knees into the chest. And we'll come to our side and slowly come up to a seated position. Thank you so much for joining me today. I am so thankful for this practice, for this space. I'm thankful to have you to join me along this journey and on this practice. Thank you.